Of New Mexico versus Alec Baldwin. The renowned actor and producer stands trial for the 2021 shooting of Helena Hutchins. Now, Hutchins was the cinematographer on the Western film Rust when Baldwin fired a live round from a prop gun, fatally striking her. Baldwin maintains his innocence, claiming he never actually pulled the trigger. Still, he's charged with involuntary manslaughter and faces an 18-month prison sentence. So the jury's been sent to their afternoon recess, but we are in luck. We have Law and Crime's very own Angenette Levy outside that courthouse with the latest. Hey, Angenette, how you doing?
Hey, Rich, how are you?
I'm
doing well. It's been an interesting afternoon in there with the redirect of Marissa Popple. What do you think?
Well, I think she was on the stand a long time, right? So a lot of cross and then redirect. I mean, what do you think the net is from her? How does it go?
Well, I thought that Alex Spiro was making some very interesting points on cross, and then Carrie Morrissey got up there, the special prosecutor, on redirect, and I felt like she kind of undid some of the things that Alex Spiro had done on cross. I mean, that's kind of her job, right? So there were some really interesting points that she made about this Good Samaritan. I found this very interesting. After Hannah Gutierrez Reed's conviction, Carrie Morrissey says there was this Good Samaritan that came into the sheriff's office and presented them with .45 caliber ammo. And said, hey, you know, maybe this is the ammo from the Rust set. Alex Spiro had asked about this on cross-examination. On redirect, Carrie Morrissey asked the question, did you know that this happened after her conviction? And, you know, this was a friend of Hannah Gutierrez Reed's father, this Good Samaritan who brought this ammo in. On cross, Alex Spiro made it sound like that was never investigated and that ammo was kind of hidden. He said it was buried, that was his word, and put aside. Apparently the ammo is still at the sheriff's office. It wasn't put in the Rust investigation file or vault or locker, what have you, because it could be visually inspected and they could tell that it was not the Rust ammo, the live ammo. So I thought that was an interesting point. I thought that she kind of came in and undid a lot of what the headway he had maybe made on cross-examination. Also, something that was really interesting, Rich, they're talking about juror questions. And in some jurisdictions, the judge will allow jurors to submit questions in writing. Typically, though, the judge will ask those questions after both sides are done with their questioning. And it almost looked like, Rich, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. We're sitting in the courtroom. I'm sitting next to a friend of mine trying to figure out what's going on. And it almost seemed like those were being given to the prosecutor and maybe she was reading them. So that's still trying to figure out what was going on with that.
That's what we thought, Angenette. We thought here in the studio that at least one of those notes was presented to a prosecutor, actually interrupted the redirect to give the note to the prosecutor. Is that what it seemed like inside the courtroom?
It kind of did. And we don't want to say for certain that was what happened, but that was how we were perceiving it. And then we started kind of Googling. We were sitting next to one another and, Larry started Googling the statute about that and the regulations or the rules about that. So the juror questions obviously are allowed. Some judges permit it. Some don't. I guess it's by, each locality has their own rules. So I think it's really interesting when the jurors, I love it when the jurors ask questions because you really get to know what they are thinking and what questions they are interested in.
Yeah, it's good for the lawyers. It allows the lawyers to know what the jurors are focusing on and to address that. I want to ask you a question about the lawyers. You have these two very experienced prosecutors from New Mexico, and you have these two youngish lawyers from a very good law firm that I know very well out in New York. How do you think the lawyers are playing in the courtroom? How do they seem? How are they interacting with the jury?
Well, yesterday I felt like, in just watching it unfold, and I actually moved kind of over yesterday and this morning to the Baldwin side of the courtroom so I could get a better look at the jury because it was really hard to see their facial expressions from where I was sitting yesterday on the media side. I kind of wondered if Alex Spiro, if his style was playing with this jury. You have a lot of older people on this jury, a lot of women. He's a good-looking guy. I'm not going to say that matters, but I mean, he's easy to look at, easy to listen to. His voice is good, but he talks a little fast. He moves a little fast through the evidence, and he's New York, right? This is New Mexico. This is a little different out here. And so I could see maybe these prosecutors being able to relate more or coming across as more relatable to this jury. I don't know if you've picked up on this either, Rich, but Carrie Morrissey, she really has a way about her. You know, I see on social media, some people love her, some people don't, but she has a way of really delivering her questions. You know, when she comes back up there to really land the question and make her point, she has there's a performance aspect to her that I think that she really brings something to that. She knows what she wants to do. She knows the point that she wants to get across, and she really delivers it well. So two very, very, very different styles here.
Yeah,
New York versus the local New Mexico lawyers.
I see that too. Now, she seems to be the lawyer who so far is commanding the room, and that a lot of times is the lawyer you want to be. She gets the attention. And I think you were trying to be nice. The word you're looking for with Alec Spiro is he may come across as slick. And that would be a problem if he
Maybe
comes
a little
across.
Slick.
Yeah, a little slick. That could be a problem.
Or that he's trying to pull a fast one.
Right.
Like, you know, I'm going to come in here and pull a fast one. I did think the whiteboard was good. That was interesting. He went old school. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think that can always be really good. I like it when they get out and they start writing and you're trying to show the jury where you're going. But yeah, if they feel like you're coming in here and trying to like pull a fast one on them and you're being too slick, might not play well in the end.
Yep. Now, I liked his opening. So let me ask you, though, about the man of the hour, Alec Baldwin. He's had to sit there in court hour after hour. That's a tough job. And there are multiple trials.
It really is.
There are multiple cameras in this courtroom. So there's a camera on him every second. And we even saw at one point during one of the arguments this afternoon, he got up and left the courtroom. What do you think of the way he's carrying himself inside that New Mexico courtroom?
Well, I think it is exhausting, and I've mentioned this before, and no shade to anybody who's in their 60s or anything like that, but you've got the stress of being on trial. He's a 66-year-old man with 7 young children, and he doesn't want to be here. I mean, there was a People.com article yesterday that quoted an exclusive source, you know, somebody from the Baldwin side saying this is not the way Alec Baldwin and Hilaria Baldwin wanted to spend their summer. Who would? But this is what they're having to do. And so I thought I think he's engaged, he's talking to his lawyers, and I think things have been good, but there have been some times where he maybe appeared to look like he might be nodding off a little. Keep in mind, I'm seeing him from behind. You all are watching him on the main feed, and you're seeing his face. But I'm not sure walking up during the argument when you're the defendant in the case to go out and get maybe coffee or go to the bathroom, probably not the best idea. So that probably was not a good thing to do. So I think you just need to wait and sit, even if it's outside the presence of the jury. This is your trial, so you've got to stay put and you've got to look engaged.
Yeah, it's okay.
And not defensive. He's got to stop this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the getting up was okay because the jury wasn't in the room. He could never do that in front of the jury. You never want to walk out while the jury's there or walk back in. So I've noticed in this trial the first 2 days, there's a ton of evidentiary issues. There's a lot of sidebars.
Yeah.
There was a big break for evidence. And it seems like to some extent the trial is struggling to get going. Is that the way it feels in the courtroom?
Well, I can tell you right now that it seemed like there were a lot of sidebars this morning. Then we had the hearing at 1 p.m. Mountain Time today over the redactions for the police interview, which to me, I felt like that should have happened much earlier in the process. I don't know why that's happening today. That seems like something that could have been handled a while ago, potentially. Maybe they were waiting on some of the rulings from the judge, but some of these things were so, I don't know, no-brainers for arguments to be made by the defense that I don't know why they weren't made sooner, especially when they have an army of lawyers on their side. And then, all these sidebars and all the arguing about whatever, the objections, it's taking a long time. And Corporal Alexandria Hancock, the lead detective in this case, was supposed to be on the stand today. She is supposed to be on the stand. It is after 3 o'clock Mountain Time, and the judge, I think, wanted this trial to go to like 4 or 4:30 every day. Yesterday, we were pushing it closer to 5, I believe. So I don't know how on earth, there's no way they're getting through Alexandria Hancock today, when especially they were going to play Alec Baldwin's police interview because she's the one who interviewed him. So there's no way. And then Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was expected to possibly testify tomorrow morning. That the prosecution wanted to call her tomorrow morning. That's not happening. I mean, I'm calling it right now. I mean, we're not staying here till 7 o'clock tonight to hear testimony, I don't believe. So I don't know when. I would assume Alexandria Hancock will be on the stand into tomorrow.
Yeah, I find the first couple of days of trial are always a little sluggish because you have to go over so much basic information for the jury. You have these evidentiary issues. I take your point. A lot of this you would think would have been addressed in motions in limine. There were substantial pretrial proceedings the other day, so it does seem to interfere a little bit. I want to ask you one substantive question. The way I heard opening statement by Alex Spiro, it sounded like they are conceding or almost conceding that Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger, which is a change from what I thought they were going to do. Is that the way you heard it?
It does sound like that. And there was also mention, Rich, yesterday, I can't recall if it was an opening or maybe talking with some other witness. Yes, it was during Nicholas LaFleur's testimony about how he was telling Alec Baldwin, quit talking to people about this. You keep the witnesses apart. You don't want their statements contaminated. And yet he's talking to Dave Halls, and even though he was told not to talk to anybody, things like that are going on. And, I'm just like, he talked about contaminating statements and he was asking LaFleur, can your memory be tainted by somebody else? So they talked about in opening statement, Alex Spiro did, about, maybe not intentionally pulling the trigger. Maybe he didn't intend to pull the trigger. And then now we have this introduction of this, phenomenon of somebody tainting your memory, maybe. So we've got these two kind of things coming in here. Is this to maybe say, oh, maybe he did pull the trigger, but he didn't remember that he did because his memory was tainted, and maybe he did it and didn't intend to because it was a hair trigger and didn't realize what had happened.
Right.
So maybe he thinks he didn't do it. I was talking to Ben Chu, Johnny Depp's lawyer, last week too, and he said maybe it's a coping mechanism, a psychological defense mechanism, a coping mechanism. You just can't bring yourself to think that you did that. So, but I think the defense, they're saying we've switched now from I didn't pull the trigger to maybe memory contamination, or I didn't intend to do it.
Well, they have to do that because they have a problem, which is the evidence seems pretty compelling that the gun wouldn't have fired unless he pulled the trigger. And he has those statements after the fact where he pretty clearly says, I didn't pull the trigger, and he's got to explain that. Now, do you think he's going to take the stand to explain it, or is it still too early to tell?
Well, I think it's too early to tell. They could be a decision that's made later in the game, depending on how they feel the rest of the case is going. But I kind of have felt for the last week or two that he is the only person, Rich, who can explain why he said the things that he said. I mean, the whole reason that they did the accidental discharge testing that basically either destroyed or damaged the gun was because he said that. That's the only reason they asked the FBI to do it. We have to figure out if this thing can fire without the trigger being pulled. So they did it in response to that interview with George Stephanopoulos back in December of 2021. That's the only reason they did that testing. So he's the only person I feel like who can explain why he said what he said. And, Rich, just for your information, the ABC News interview is listed as an exhibit on the defense's exhibit list. So how do you get that in unless you bring it in through Alec Baldwin or George Stephanopoulos? I'm kind of been wondering to myself, how do you bring that into evidence?
I think that's
an exhibit unless one of those people testifies.
I think that's where we're heading to. All right, Angenette, I hear they're heading back into the courtroom. I know you want to get in the courtroom. We're going to take a quick break, come back and pick up what's going on in there. Thank you so much. I believe I'll see you tomorrow morning because I'm back here.